Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of the Legal Zone where we tackle injustice. Mr. John Salati, it's so great to see you today.
Good to see you, Mr. Phillips. Good to see you indeed.
Dr. Cheney, always a pleasure.
Good morning to you.
Can you turn your microphone down a little bit? I think that.
Okay, I will.
All righty, great. We have a very special guest with us today, and I'm going to get to her in a minute, but I'm going to pull up the chalkboard. We haven't done one of these in a while, so let's talk about a particular phrase that some of you may have been familiar with, some of you may not have been. It is, I'm gonna mute, Ms. Medley, I'm gonna mute you for a second. All right, maybe that's it. All right, let's enlarge this. Respondeant Superior. For those in law school, you're probably familiar with this. If not, you should be. For the rest of you, this is a Latin phrase. This phrase literally means that the master must answer. Respondeant superior. The superior must respond. The superior must answer. But what does that mean? What is that? For all the people out there who are employers and have employees, this would pertain to you. It means that an employer is responsible for the acts of its employees. An employer is responsible for the acts of its employees. That means that you as an employer might be responsible for the murders your employees commit. Maybe, maybe not. Two things must happen. One, the employee must be an employee. Independent contractors are exempt from this. The other thing is the act must be within the scope of employment. What does that mean? Well, it means that there's a test for that the courts look at. Was the thing that the person did to advance the employer? Was it for the benefit of the employer? Several shows ago, a few months ago, we had a case with an Athena Phillips who was suing. Actually, she was arrested by an agent of Walmart. If someone arrests you and hurts you, and it's their job to arrest you, then they were acting within the scope of their employment. But you hear cases of the plumber who went to the lady's house late at night to fix her leaking drain, and he raped her. Well, that's not within the scope of his employment. So the employer probably will not be held liable for those acts. So those are the distinguishing factors. Remember that as we talk about the case today with our lovely client, Miss Devon Medley. I'm going to unmute you now. There we go. And Dr. Cheney, I'm going to mute you really quick. Good morning, Miss Medley. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. No complaints. How about yourself?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for coming on. Miss Medley is a client of ours, and she is going through a situation. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what's going on with you?
Well, in short, I had a contractor act on something that's inappropriate in the scope of practice of massage therapy with a client. However, with further investigation, I found that the client actually initiated it and that the therapist went through the process of acting on what the client initiated that wasn't a part of the scope of practice.
Okay, so let's go back. So you have a business. What type of business do you have?
So I have a spa where we offer different spa services such as massage therapy, Reiki, meditation, waxing services, and also sauna services where you just sit in a steam sauna. However, for the most part, I contract out to different providers so that I won't be the one doing all the work, and I will pay them the difference
Okay.
out of the services being conducted.
Okay. So you have a spa and it's located in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Okay. And you've had it for how long?
I had it for about 3 years,
Okay.
but we started off as just like a service that we went to people's houses, or hosted events at different events for like different days, like breast cancer, Mother's Day, Father's Day, those type of things. And then as we started to build more clientele and revenue, I ended up getting a spa studio to sublease and offer services.
Okay. And what's the name of your company? If you could put a plug in for everybody watching.
DD Balance.
Okay. DD Balance. So there came a time in 2019 when you had hired, so to speak, a masseuse, a massage therapist.
Yes.
Okay. And he was doing his thing in your studio in whatever it's called, a spa. What is the facility called?
Yeah, a spa.
A spa.
You can say a studio or spa.
Okay. So a particular lady came to your spa to get a massage.
Yes.
Okay. And while she was there, something happened.
Yes.
What happened?
While she was
So wait, let me ask you, what did she say happened? Because we will get into more facts because there's a lot of stories going on, but what did she say happened?
wow. So when it initially happened, I was told that I couldn't know anything about it because it wasn't involving me, but something that took place at my business. Then this year, what is it, like 2 years later?
Well, right. So
I
we're going to come up, but let's go back
Okay.
to that. So what did she say happened 2 years ago?
Oh, I never knew anything. That I just knew that a person was assaulted. And then it wasn't until maybe like months later that I received something that said that she was sexually assaulted and all the details of the situation where she was forced to do something against her will.
Okay. So essentially, she was sexually assaulted by your masseuse, your massage therapist.
Yes.
Right. And this was in 2019.
Yes.
And 2 years later, 2021, you get served a complaint.
Yes.
And how much, and you're being sued and your company.
Yes.
And how much are they suing you all for?
$10 million.
Okay. So to put everything in context, Miss Medley has a business, Washington, D.C. She hired a masseuse. A lady comes in, she gets a massage, and then she says that she was sexually abused. Now, were you there when this happened?
Yes.
And you saw her walk out?
I didn't see her physically come out of the room, but I did hear when she touched one of the doors to get outside where the stairs are, and I saw her walk out of the building at the front door, but I only saw the back of her, not her physical face.
Okay. But you were in the vicinity while she was getting
Yes.
massage?
Yes.
Okay. And so 2 years later, she gets this complaint for $10 million. Now I'm going to do something. I'm going to show the actual complaint so the viewers can know her story, because we want to make sure, and we want to be equal opportunity. And we're not downplaying anything. We're just sharing the facts. Okay, so I don't want to see any emails about us trying to downplay a situation that's serious, because this is serious. Okay, this is the actual complaint that was filed against Miss Medley. And you would see in paragraph 19, when plaintiff, this is the young lady, arrived at DD Balance Spa on September 29th, 2019 at 11:30, the sign outside of the business on the building said La Chick Spa. There was one person inside the business. This man introduced himself as Luther and instructed plaintiff to follow him as he would be providing the massage. Is Luther the guy that was working for you?
Yes.
Okay. Unbeknownst to plaintiff, Luther was not actually licensed as a massage therapist in the District of Columbia. We'll talk about that later. So they made the accusation that Luther was not licensed. Plaintiff later learned that Luther was in fact Luther Barnes. Oops, so his name's out in the public. I was trying to keep it out, but this is public record, so it's not like we're sharing anything that anyone cannot find out. At all times relevant, Luther was an employee and or agent of the spa defendants who was acting within the scope of his employment. Now you heard just what the definition of was to Respondeant Superior. And this attorney is making the accusation that he was an employee and he was acting within the scope. Okay. So Luther led plaintiff into a small room, closing the door behind the plaintiff. The room was the size of a walk-in closet, just enough room for the massage table and for a person to walk around the table. Luther instructed plaintiff to remove her clothes, to lie face down on the massage table, and to place a draping towel over her body. The purpose of the draping was to protect the plaintiff's physical and emotional privacy. Luther left the room and told plaintiff he would return in 2 minutes. Once the draping was in place, Luther returned to the room and proceeded to massage the plaintiff. Okay, everything's fine so far. Approximately 20 minutes into the massage, and while plaintiff was lying face down on the massage table and naked, other than the draping, Luther assaulted and battered plaintiff by rubbing his penis, his erect penis, against her. Okay. Plaintiff did not consent to this offensive and unwelcome touching. Shortly thereafter, Luther undid his pants and forced his penis into plaintiff's mouth. Plaintiff remained lying face down on the massage table with Luther standing over plaintiff as he raped her. Without plaintiff's consent, and while plaintiff was still on the massage table, Luther then climbed on top of plaintiff and forcibly and violently inserted his penis into plaintiff's vagina. Luther pinned down plaintiff as he raped her. Now that's a horrible depiction of something that happened against her will. And again, we don't take anything lightly. But the way, and John knows this, the way this story is written, there's a lot of confusion, right? She's laying face down and he comes and he does this to her. So we did some digging and I was able to find her actual complaint to the police right after this happened. Let's see what she says in her own words. And you received this complaint, right, Ms. Medley?
No, just the one that you read.
Right, the one that I just read. You received that.
Okay, yes.
And were you shocked when you saw that? Because you didn't know any of this.
Very shocked, very shocked. My heart dropped like, wow, because I was there at the moment and I didn't hear any screams. And also our walls didn't go up. Even though they divided the rooms, they didn't go up to the ceiling. So there was still space where there was an echo in the place, which is why we always try to keep low voices in the facility because you can hear everything.
Now, were you in communication with Luther's where you could say, hey, what's this? Because this was 2 years after the fact.
Well, no, apparently he changed his number around the time that came around, but I technically didn't know that, but I heard from other people that they had seen him.
How much longer after this was he working for you?
Probably about one more weekend after that. I had missed him to inform him about that he couldn't come back for a while until the situation was handled. But I know I had a family emergency, which made me unavailable to tell him at an appropriate time before he came back that weekend.
And you told him that he couldn't come back because by this time an officer had come to you, and that's when you, as you said earlier, they were questioning you about what had happened.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the story that was in the complaint that I read didn't really sit well with me. So I did a little bit of digging and I found this. This is the report that she had given shortly after it happened. the investigation. Now, this CW is the person. We're going to continue to keep her name private. She talks about how she was advised, yada, yada. She had got a Groupon. By the way, I think it's important to note that this suit against Miss Medley and her company includes Groupon and some other businesses, but it does not include Luther. You can make of what you want with that. So let's jump right into where she starts talking about the story. All right, she went to BB Balance to advertise. The CW, that's the victim, stated that she had made an appointment for the massage for 11:30. The CW advised that she arrived at the location at approximately 11:30 and went inside to the second floor where she checked in at the front desk. The CW stated she signed some paperwork. The CW advised that the location appeared to a normal spa with calming music and beaded curtains. You have beaded curtains in your spa?
Just to go to the bathroom in the hallway before you get to the door.
The CW stated that after signing in, she was greeted by the defendant who took her to a back room where the defendant showed the CW where to undress. The CW advised that the defendant instructed her to undress to her level of comfort, then lay under the sheet on the massage table. Now notice in the complaint, that part wasn't in there. It wasn't that Mr. Barnes instructed her to address to her level of comfort. You just said that she got naked. The CW advised that she removed all of her clothing except for her underwear. The CW laid down on the massage table and covered it with the sheet. The CW advised that the defendant entered the room and asked her what areas of her body needed attention. The CW advised she told the defendant that she carries a lot of stress in her shoulders, and the two engaged in some small talk. The CW, again, this is the victim's own words, advised that she did not want to talk any further with the defendant because she was face down and wanted to enjoy the massage. The CW advised that everything felt normal until the defendant began to massage down her back toward her tailbone. The CW advised that she felt it was getting weird when the defendant began pulling on her hair in a way that she described as sexual. The CW stated that the hair pulling may have been part of the massaging the scalp, but she felt it was odd and believed it was sexual and not normal to a massage. The CW stated that she was instructed by the defendant to roll over from her stomach to her back. Remember, in the complaint, she doesn't say that. She was on her stomach the entire time. So that now the CW was lying face up. The CW advised that the defendant began massaging her legs, one leg at a time. The CW advised that the defendant massaged her left leg, then her left arm. And as the defendant was walking around to the other side, she felt the defendant brush against her. And the CW believed that the defendant may have had an erection. The CW advised that she didn't think anything of it. The CW advised the defendant walked around her again. The defendant brushed against her again, and the CW stated that she now knew that the defendant had an erection. The CW stated that she tried to lay still and was concerned because there was no one else around. The CW allowed the defendant to continue to massage her, and the defendant began to massage her breast. The CW stated that the massaging of her breast didn't seem normal, but still allowed the defendant to massage her. The CW advised that she was wearing a mask over her eyes while she was being massaged, and at some point in the massage, the defendant placed his exposed penis on the table next to her face. She's on her back still now. The CW explained that the mask was being partially off of her eyes, and she was able to see the defendant's exposed erect penis. The CW stated that she thought that the defendant placed his penis near her face so that she would suck it. The CW stated that she felt uncomfortable and thought that if she did something, the defendant would take his penis away. So the CW advised that she licked the head of the defendant's penis. The CW advised that the defendant removed his penis from her face. The CW stated that within a few minutes, the defendant got on top of her as she was on the massage table and inserted his penis into her vagina. The CW described that this went on for a while and it hurt. The CW stated that while she never made any comments to the defendant to get off of her to stop. The CW stated that she laid there until on the table still. The CW stated that after a few minutes of the defendant did stop, got off the table, and then continued the massage. The CW stated that she was unaware if the defendant wore a condom or if he ejaculated. She goes on to say that she left, she went across the street to the CVS and she bought a granola bar, and then she called a friend, and the friend told her to call the police. And I'm assuming that that's when you saw her walking out of your facility.
Mhm.
So we see two
Because it
different,
was right by a CVS. We were literally next door to a CVS.
right. So we see two conflicting stories. One where she's on her stomach the whole time and the defendant, Mr. Barnes, thrusts his penis in her mouth. Then we see another story that, again, just factual. It came from her within hours after it happened. And she said she got on her back and she saw his penis in her face. And she thought that if she had licked it, he would move. And then a rape ensued. So let's talk about the elements again. Now, was he an employee or was he an independent contractor of yours?
He was an independent contractor.
Okay. And these are, I'm going to just ask, and it's probably a trial question, John, right? But is it part of his description to have sex with any of these people?
No. The only thing I do know is that sex will be thrown out if the therapist had known the person prior to them coming to get an appointment. Where, not saying that sex wouldn't be an issue, but that's like something that I know that was like on one of the like exam questions. Basically, like if it was somebody you knew prior to massaging them, and if you acted out on sex on the table, that it's like okay or something like that. But he didn't know her prior to that, to my understanding.
And you're a massage therapist, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what are your thoughts now that, because have you seen the report before?
No, I have not.
What are your thoughts about her report now that you've read that?
I'm shocked. I think it's insane. I wouldn't let anybody do something like that to me. I would scream. And the fact that she said no one was there, there was a business downstairs that had been moving out, and it was several women down there where she could have acknowledged them, where they could have called the police right then and there to settle the situation and get things handled versus, I understand maybe if she didn't want to face it, but even still, just like that's just such a sensitive situation that I would want to tell someone right then and there if I felt uncomfortable with it. But
Yeah.
also with that, I remember putting out a bottle of water because we give the clients a bottle of water after each service. And I put out a bottle of water and she walked past the door in order to get the water, then walked out.
So she got the water and then she walked out.
Yes. So it's just like, I don't know. I wouldn't have handled the situation like that. I would have said something to someone because it was someone there, and immediately called the police while I was still there to have them come on the premises as it just happened if I was uncomfortable with the situation.
Yeah. And again, we don't want to make light of the situation. Dr. Cheney, I'm going to turn it over to you now. What questions do you have? You're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm okay now? How are you today?
Hi, well, and yourself?
Okay, I just have a couple questions. Well, three really. When you talk about training and all that, I don't know that much about massage, except for I've had a couple, and I think it's just so much fun to do that. So I looked at a little bit of history, and I found out that we're talking about the evolution starting in the 1700s. So it's being practiced all over the place. and influenced by so many different groups of people and locations, America, Greece, Sweden, Asia, of course, Asia,
Mhm.
and so many other places, as you probably know. And I thought it was interesting, though, as the years went by, training and licensing became a requirement because initially the whole thing was, well, here in America, the medical personnel, orthopedics, checking out the bones and whatnot, excuse me, were really the folk that were using or having assistance by people called rubbers, people who actually feel that kind of stuff touching. And so the rubbers were women, uneducated women. And then as time went on, they became specialized as you are yourself today. One of the things that I want to ask you, because I saw there's so many different types of massages, can you share with us some of the requests that you get for different types, if there's such a thing in your shop?
So we get requested for Swedish and deep tissue, which are two of the common types of massage therapy. But they're also like over 1,800 styles of massage therapy. One of my favorite is sports massage, where it doesn't really require you massaging the person per se. It's more so of you stretching the person's ligaments and body parts to help them with more range of motion. And with that, you don't have to be nude. You can just be clothed when you get that done.
Yeah, I had one done at a place. They were all Asian men,
Mhm.
and the place were loaded with folk, and we had our clothes on. And they massage your hair, your scalp, your feet. And I was just hoping that they would go to the feet after they finished the back. So it's just such an experience that you don't forget.
Well, before you go to the next question, I had a quick question for you, Dr. Cheney.
Uh-huh.
My head is still, and I've read this for several weeks now. So you said you had a massage before
Oh yeah, I did. I've had two.
too. So if you one of these massages, were they men or women who gave it?
It's interesting. The first one was with a woman, an Asian woman, and the second, interestingly, an Asian man.
Okay, so
Mhm.
if this Asian man was massaging you and you open your eyes and you saw his penis in your face, what would you do?
I'd scream and say, "What are you
Mhm.
doing?"
Okay. I just
Yeah.
yeah, I just didn't. I just wanted to know because yeah. So go ahead with
Yes,
your next question.
yeah, interesting question. The second thing is, what is the process when someone becomes a client? For example, do they walk off the street? Is there advance appointment? Do they pay before or after? Do they report a problem or concern? What's the process? I become your client. Do I just show up?
Well, I preferably like people to make appointments so that I can set my day because I don't know what I may have planned or people already scheduled to come in. But clients can be someone that may have spotted us on the street, may have found us through Google and is interested in our services. Maybe somebody who has come to me before and they told someone else about my services and then they want to come. That's how they become a client, by when they call and make an appointment or say that they want to come, and then we go from there.
What about payment? Did I miss that?
Payment. So with Groupon, it's a third party payment. So they pay through Groupon first, and then Groupon pays us through a schedule of like 1 to 2 times a month. So usually they've already paid and they come in and we redeem the vouchers right then and there when they come in. However, if they were not satisfied with the service, usually I'll suggest like another therapist or maybe another service. And some people want a refund. So that's also another process where I would have to contact Groupon, express to them what occurred and why they want a refund. And it is actually up to Groupon to say whether or not they want to give them a refund for what occurred. But if it's someone that comes to me and gets the service, usually I have people pay afterwards because I usually get tips and they enjoy the service. I don't usually take it beforehand only because we don't know if they want something extra for the most part. And I believe that I trust most of the people that come to me that they won't run out without paying.
Yeah,
Now,
'cause- yeah.
I want to mention that the lawsuit also includes Groupon, right? They're also suing Groupon in this. Just about every business that was associated with this transaction is included in this lawsuit. But again, Mr. Barnes is not. All right, go ahead, Dr. Chain.
All right, because what I was trying to do is some way connect the client with you, meaning that the pay, meaning that checking out or something like that. But it seems like the client could do any of the interaction based on what you're saying with this Groupon in advance. And then once you come in, it's just the client and the therapist. It never would have to go to the front desk or whatever.
No, yes, they would have to go through the front desk. So we have a whole entire process where you come in, you check in, you sign in on the name sheet, and then you also fill out an intake form. And basically, the intake form states like your name, your address, maybe your birthday if we do any promotions like that. But also it lists like some of the areas that you want focused on, some of the areas you don't want focused on, and any pertinent information of your history health, especially like high blood pressure, which is something that we try to make sure that people have medication for blood pressure issues, because we cannot massage someone who has high blood pressure or someone who has any type of situation where their levels of like response time is not good or they have a bad heart and stuff like that, because massage can increase the heart rate throughout the session, especially with breathing and everything, and people who have anxiety and don't know how to relax.
Wow. So this lady left something with you, the sheet with you.
No, so that's the thing. I wasn't there initially when she came in, but I came in shortly after her. But she didn't sign in and she didn't fill out an intake form. So I did want to get that from her before she left out. But at the time when she left out, I was in the bathroom. And when I came back out, I saw that the water was gone. And that's what let me know that she got it. And I went to look out the door and she was done out the door already. And I wanted to yell to her, like, hey, come back. I need you to fill out something. But she had already left.
Oh, so she never filled out any of the paperwork?
No, not the sign-in sheet, nor did she fill out an intake form. And when I asked the therapist about it, he was like, I thought she signed it. She said she did, but it wasn't anything on the table. And I like to get that just to validate that people were there in case if something were to happen.
John, we might need to use that because we're about to file. Anyway, that's interesting. Now, I wanted to point out in the complaint, through her attorney, says that Mr. Barnes was not licensed. Now, did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Now,
I thought he was because of his experience in the vouching that I did get from another spa owner for his work that he had done at her shop. And she had nothing but good things to say about him.
and on his resume, did he have that he was licensed?
I believe so. I have to look at it again.
Yeah,
But
you
it
said,
did say that he was a massage therapist and he went to school for it. And it also listed a spa that he worked at prior to.
okay. So this is one point for everyone listening, that sometimes attorneys would put in their complaint things that have little to no truth to them, right? They're telling the person's story, and John knows that we double check to make sure, triple check, that what they're saying is 100% accurate. It does not seem as though this particular attorney did that, because we can disprove a lot of the things that he's saying in there. Now, and this is again a point that employers need to know, that when you hire someone, you do have to do what's called a reasonable check, right? And Miss Medley, she checked his resume. She did check his references to make sure that he was what he said he was. Now, of course, they're going to say, and I'm not even sure how they get this information that he's not. We'll find out that later. Because remember, everyone, this is a real live case that's going on. This is real life. This is real time we're talking about. So we'll weed that out a little bit more. John, did you have any
I have one more.
One more, and then we'll go to you, John.
Mhm.
Then we'll let you go.
Okay, one.
It's okay?
Yeah, she has to go quickly, so go ahead.
Okay,
Oh, no, I'm okay.
Okay.
okay. The last question I have is, as I told you, I did a little research. Don't have this experience. It's called happy ending. I recently, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You're the experienced person in this mix. I recently read an article, and it was a case where a New York therapist was massaging a client. And during the process, he decided the person that was doing the massage decided to massage the man to the point he was sexually aroused, to which the man yelled, "Get out of here," to the therapist, and immediately called the police. What are your thoughts regarding massages and therapists and crossing the lines to create happy endings? Can it be accidental or can it be prearranged financially? Just generally, what are your thoughts about that?
Um, it could be both, but also I know that even from my school experience, massage is so intense to the point where it's like you have counter transference and then you have transference where you can either transfer energy to the client on the table or they can transfer energy to you. And sometimes it's not intentional, but it could be something that went through the person on the table's mind and it stimulated that and they revert to that thought process through that touch because they may not have been touched like that. Or it could be close to the body areas of that sexual area, but it's not necessarily intended for that. So, I mean, to answer your question, it can go either way, or I believe that people come in there with the actual thought and it could be stimulated without even the plan on coming to get that. Because I've experienced where a man has touched me and it was just like, ooh, this is too much. I'm like, stop. Like, that's not what I came here for. And that may not have been his intention, but I was strong enough to say to him, like, I don't want to do this. Like, can I get another therapist? You know what I mean?
I do.
Um, yeah, and that's it. Like it, but again, everybody has the decision to make to say stop if they feel weird, awkward, or that something else is going to happen, but nothing happens.
I think I'm glad you mentioned that because I've studied communication and we talk about nonverbal communication and the power of touch. And there are degrees of touching. And it's just such a powerful emotion and feeling when you talk about touch. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
John?
Well, I'm going to wander back to the license question because I'm anticipating this down the road, right? As this case, hopefully, what we're doing now will just get this whole thing tossed as we believe it should be. But if that doesn't happen, I'm wondering if the other side will bring up a question about, well, this license. Okay, you checked his resume and you checked his references, and they were all happy with him. Would it not be, I guess, what you say, standard practice to say, I need to see your license? Right? I mean, that's a piece of paper, right? I mean, when you're licensed, you have something you could show me. So would I'm wondering, or I'm hoping this does not become an issue, but whether or not this question of, well, did you ask him, Mr. Luther, let me see a copy of your license so I can keep that on record because that's part of my background check on you.
And if this was a deposition, I'll tell her I would object because I wouldn't want her to answer that yet because we don't want, it's still things in the works. So maybe she did and can't remember, but we don't know at this point. So yes, but that could potentially be an issue in this case as to how far. Now, remember, we're representing Ms. Medley and the company. We're not representing Mr. Luther Barnes. And that will definitely be an issue, because if they could say she failed somehow, and again, remember what the two issues were: the scope of the work and employer-employee relationship. So even if she failed to do that, he was an independent contractor, and the rape was not within the scope of massaging. So I think we still have a very strong case, but that particular question, we would leave that for further down the road, but definitely think about that, Ms. Medley. Now, I also want everyone to know that DC has a law, and it's probably in every state, that people who are therapists, personal trainers, massage therapists, if you have sex with a client, even though it may be consensual, it's still a crime in DC. You cannot have sex with a client while you're administering whatever therapeutic services. So Mr. Barnes, he has his own issue, and this DC, they filed criminal charges against him because they did in fact find, they did the sperm analysis and they did find his semen in her. So they know something happened, and whether it was consensual or not doesn't matter, right? So he's going to be prosecuted. But then this particular civil case is different, and they could have added him to this civil case if her story in the complaint is 100% true, because he battered her. He forced himself on her. That would be all the things that they're saying our clients did. But for those out there who are business owners and therapists, even if the person says yes, you have to say no, at least not while I'm on the clock. We'll pick up again tonight or whatever, but while you're on the clock, it's a no. I think you have a very strong case, Miss Medley, and we'll continue to fight for justice on your behalf. Thank you so much.
Make that happen.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and I'll contact you later in the week.
Okay, awesome.
All
Talk to
right,
you soon.
take
All
care.
right, bye. Nice meeting everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, good
Bye.
luck.
All righty, so Dr. Janey, I'm going to start with you. This is an interesting case. What do you think? What are your unadulterated thoughts? Don't hold back. Don't worry that 20,000 people are listening to you. Just tell me honestly. By the way, you all remember to subscribe. We're trying to get more viewers.
20,001. So,
Yes.
you know, we need that next person.
So what are your thoughts? Honestly, you're the woman on here. You could say things that John and I cannot say. You're on mute. Unmute yourself. We want to hear you. You're on mute. Start
Even
over.
she can't say them.
You're still on
Just
mute. You're still mute. We got to hear this. And again, we're not making light of the situation. I don't want to get hate emails talking about we're laughing at anybody. We're not. This is serious. You should have. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, you just put it up. Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned about the touch business, because that's really important. As far as happy endings are concerned, I certainly
I don't
hope
know what that is. What are you talking about?
a happy ending is when you're having a massage and it gets to a point that, come on, you know what that means. Well, we explained that a little bit earlier, that it gets to a point, there's a possibility that you're sexually aroused to no fault of anybody's, but unless it's deliberate. In my understanding, in some places you can go and you expect that because it's prearranged or whatever. But anyway,
Yeah, I never heard it. Thanks for educating me on that. I'm assuming that you're familiar with that.
I am now,
Okay.
because I did the research.
Okay. Go ahead.
Anyway, yeah, I didn't experience it, but I did the research.
Oh,
But
okay.
anyway, rape is a very serious situation
Yes.
to be forced against your will. However, if it's just so confusing. I can't understand. I would sue the guy too. I would sue everybody if I'm suing. I would definitely sue the guy. I don't know the guy, and he
But,
did what he did.
but you would
I would have
include,
never put my mouth on this person. I couldn't understand that.
yeah, and we can't judge somebody, but it just seems very odd that as a means of having somebody move, you would do that.
Yeah, I would think you would probably scream or start fighting or something.
Hit him, something.
You wouldn't necessarily
Well,
hit him on the penis, but you would hit him
Some
because
people.
he might really come after you if you did that. So,
Well,
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 I'm
I don't
willing to
know.
give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
In other words, again, you say there are things that, as a man, yeah, I don't know, but you read enough things to say women in certain situations, one reaction is basically to freeze up and not do anything. And
right.
then after the fact, maybe you feel guilty or what did I do or why didn't I do, but in the moment, a reasonable natural reaction is to just freeze. So
Especially if it's happened to before, right? And you reliving that and you're just fearful of what happened. And so you freeze up.
yeah, so okay, let's assume for the sake of this conversation that that's what's happened. The question that we're dealing with here is Ms. Medley responsible for that?
Right.
You know, whether she said yes, whether she said no, whether she said anything, whether she froze, whatever the circumstances are, is Ms. Medley somehow responsible and therefore liable? And no matter what happened in that room, our understanding is no, that's not, Ms. Medley is not responsible.
Right. If what this man did is true, he did a horrible, despicable thing, and he should go to jail, and he should
Yes.
pay the victim for what he did to her. I would be the first one in line to get at this guy. But I'm against people who have been victimized, and then they try to capitalize by involving innocent people. And there's nothing that Miss Medley could have done to have prevented this other than just not have her business. Right?
As we've noticed in some of the cases that we've looked at, you know, even if he were an employee, let's take that other piece off, right? The first thing is, well, he's not an employee, so that automatically should get this whole thing thrown. But okay, let's for the moment say he is an employee of DD Balance. Nevertheless, can you say that what he's done, she's responsible for, because she didn't hire him to do that? She didn't hire him to assault people, just as in the cases we've read. Oh, well, yes, the train company did not hire somebody to beat the living daylights out of a taxi driver.
Right.
So whether he was working or not working, the court said, well, you can't hold the company responsible because that wasn't his job. His job was not to beat people up.
Right. And he's talking about a particular case that we're using where a situation happened where someone was working for a train and then got mad at somebody and ended up beating them, and they tried to sue the train company, but the court said no, because him beating the person did not involve his job description as a train manager, whatever it was he was.
So the injustice of what's happened to the woman who got the massage, we're all willing to put that on the table. And now what we're dealing with is sort of, though, an extension of that injustice to say, well, now we're going to, in a sense, victimize Ms. Medley. So now we're going, there's the injustice, right there. Now we've had one injustice and we're going to multiply that injustice by saying, well, we're not going to get anything out of this guy. What, and even if he goes to jail, blah, 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 who cares? But maybe we can get some money out of these people. And it's like, well, is that right? And that's what we are trying to deal with as a client, as Ms. Medley being our client.
Now, if she ends up, worst case scenario, having to pay this woman $10 million, where's the injustice?
She's been destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean, that will literally follow her to the end of her days. I don't see how
When
it
you
would
say her, you
follow
mean-
almost any of us.
And you mean, when you say her, you mean Miss Medley?
Ms. Medley, yeah. I mean, how is she going to pay $10 million?
Right.
You know, she's going to be nickel and diming that for literally the next 50 years.
Now, what if she does? What if she doesn't have to? What if we win for her?
Well, if we win, then she hopefully in the future will just, you know, it may impact how she runs her business or how she handles certain things to heighten her security issues on these things. But
There's still some sort of loss. I mean, she has to pay us. I'm sure there's sleepless nights that she's wondering what's going to happen. Is there any form of injustice just for the fact that this was brought against her?
well, sure, because again, now she may even question being in business. Oh, well, it's a risk now. Every time I turn around, somebody's going to sue me on something, you know, particularly because I'm in, as Dr. Cheney has pointed out, a touch-based business. So that sort of heightens the possibility in this day and age that somebody is going to now use that against me. So maybe I'll give up my dream business, right? I went to school, I was committed, I thought I could help people, and now I may have fear that I carry for many years because of this incident. I mean, it was bad enough for her to have to find out that somebody that she brought into working in her establishment has possibly harmed somebody, right? That you could tell by the way Ms. Medley discussed that situation, that affected her.
Right.
And then to have that turn around to now, oh, not only are you feeling maybe bad about that on some level or skittish or fearful, now you're seeing that this can come back and really harm you much more directly.
Dr. Cheney, do you see any relevance or anything at all to the fact that the victim came in, didn't sign any paperwork, and then left without signing any paperwork?
I'm still thinking about the glass of water. And I'm also thinking about, is there such a person that would be an expert that would provide sound analysis? There's a different kind of sound if you're having sex or being raped, I would think. And your client was saying that the room ceiling didn't come all the way.
Right.
And so you could
Walls
hear
going
things.
back.
Maybe hear things, maybe not. I would think
Well,
you
I mean,
could.
as Ms. Medley said, that was one of the concerns, that they only have these 3/4 walls. So everything you could hear. So we would say, yeah,
Right.
because otherwise your sound is now going all over the place.
But she said something very interesting, and this is for the first time I've heard it. And if people are watching, they could email with their thoughts in on this. Her report to the investigator said, you can see here, she signed paperwork. But Ms. Medley just said there was no paperwork signed. What do you think about that, Dr. Cheney?
Well, she would have signed the paperwork with the person that was on duty at the desk, right? And that's the gentleman the person that is being accused,
No,
So you're saying
right?
that was his paperwork, he took it with him?
I didn't say that, but that's where the paperwork would be. No,
No, she said there was no paperwork at the front desk.
I know, but if she did, the person that was on duty was the man that allegedly raped her.
Right. So I'm asking you, do you think that he took it with him?
Because she said that he said he thought she had filled it out.
Exactly.
So he's saying he didn't do it. He didn't have it. But
Right.
maybe he did and he walked away with it.
Maybe it fell on the floor and got wet and got lost. I've had too much logic to just say that he is the culprit here. I don't know.
Well,
But I do remember what she said.
I'm wondering, and you had brought this up, or did she bring it up? Maybe they knew each other before. No one, by the way,
I asked you about that, yeah.
no one has spoken to Mr. Barnes. I've reached out to his attorney several times, and he's not calling me back. So we don't know his side of the story.
The other part that she mentioned that is interesting, if they knew each other, it wouldn't necessarily be rape.
Yeah, there would be a
Yet
difference.
you say in the district, it would be rape.
In the district, if it was during the time that they were offering services, it's a crime.
Well, it wouldn't be rape, right? It would be a violation of DC law,
Right.
but it wouldn't
And,
be
and that's
rape.
what he's getting. That's what he's getting prosecuted for, is the violation of the DC law. Because again, all you need is proof that the semen is inside the woman, and it was during the time that they were working. That's it.
Well, I just think it's really odd that she didn't sue him. Whether she gets a nickel from him or not, he's part of the process.
Right. So
You
you're
can't eliminate that person.
so as a woman, you're saying your anger would have driven you to have him in this lawsuit, even if you could get money or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't even been thinking about that part, but yes. Unless somebody advised me, the legal team advised her to leave the person out. But see, that goes back to disappearing documents, if the document exists. Well, I mean, if the two of them, whether they knew each other or not, there's a possibility. I don't know if that can be traced.
Maybe his attorney would say that this is something that she planned all along, which is why she didn't sign in. Who knows? Again, we don't have to deal with that because we're representing the business in Miss Medley. And
But she
remember,
needed some proof to be there, though, right? Oh, the Groupon would have been the proof that she arrived.
and remember that's what I was saying. She is also suing Groupon and the other company. Very interesting case. We will revisit this case again. All of our other cases, by the way, that we've had on the show, they're still ongoing. This shows you why litigation could be such a stressful thing, because it's never quick. All of the cases that we've dealt with, they're still ongoing. But as soon as they start to close out, we will have the guest back. Thank you all once again. I know this was a very touchy, X-rated type show. Thank you, Dr. Cheney, for enlightening us about happy endings.
Okay.
Thank you, John Salati, as always, bringing out the injustice. And I'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye.
That's all.
Right.
Take care. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Thanks for watching our video. For experienced legal services in Washington, D.C., Alabama, and Washington State, visit our website at remuslaw.com or call us at 1-833-329-1799.
When someone goes through a divorce, they lose their best friend. They lose their house. They lose their children. Any time away from your child is a loss. Let's face it, divorce kills. The average cost in the United States for a divorce is $13,000. It's not uncommon for a divorce to cost well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. At Remus, we take into consideration you, the divorcing spouse, your property, your money, and your children. We assist clients in directing them to therapy, mentorship programs, savings. We mitigate the cost of divorce to keep your expenses down. We look out for the client holistically.
came to Remus Law seeking a divorce. Salon listened to me. I told him my story. When he emailed me a copy of the complaint, which summarized my story, he was able to say exactly what I had been feeling for so many years. When my husband was served with the complaint, he came to me with tears in his eyes. He said he didn't know this is how I was really feeling. He asked if we could try again.
At Remus, we do all that we can for our clients.
Wait a little bit longer, wait a little, we'll be coming around again, 'cause you know we're stronger than we were when you and I began. I don't know what's harder, holding on or letting go. I don't know if we oughta, know if we oughta, know I know. I don't know where we're going, but I know it's gonna be good. I don't know where we're going, but I know it's gonna be good.
The lessons taught in the adventures of Uncle Billy and Ross are lesson that adults learn late in life. Some never learn it. I will recommend every parent, every young person, every adult read this book. But more importantly, apply the lessons.